Happy Monday to you. Welcome to the John McEntyre Show live. I'm John McEntyre, and I hope you had a great weekend. Before we get into it here, I have a lot of good. It's going to be a good show today. I want to make sure and cover something that I was supposed to cover a few weeks ago, and I didn't get to it. And as I was looking through uh, the videos, I noticed that I actually didn't answer the question. And so I wanted to make sure and cover that today. And so before we get into it, let's cover a wallet win. This is a huge wallet win. This came, and I don't want to forget this one because this is like a big one. This is like the biggest of big. Um, this one I paid off. We paid off $170,000 in 3 years, and we saved over $45,000 in interest and fees per year alone. So that's 135,000 almost in fees that was saved. So I'm like, wow, that is a wallet win. That's a serious wallet win to see that, and I definitely celebrate that one because to that's like the twice the median income of most of America, most Americans, and you're saving that in fees, and then you paid off 170,000. So really, that's over almost $300,000 in over 300,000. Oh, 200,000. My math is not mathing. This is Monday. My math is not mathing. Um, but 200,000 over a 3 year period, paying off debt and savings. Yeah, that's a serious wallet win. And so, yes, I definitely celebrate that. And before I go into the question, if you have, make sure and send in those wallet wins. Share your wallet wins. This is live. I have to remind you that this is live. So share your questions, your wallet wins. Um, I see them. I see the wallet wins. Hashtag wallet win. If I see those, I will definitely share them and celebrate them throughout the show. And if you have questions, uppercase Q or capital Q, whichever one you use, no judgment here. I see it. Question pertaining to the show. Um, you've got questions. I'll do my best to give good answers. So let's get into this one. Like I was saying, I didn't actually get to cover this a few weeks ago, and so I wanted to make sure and get into it and actually just let the show be about that today, because a lot of times I receive a lot of questions. I get a lot of questions on, you know, like, John, my income is not regular. It's not steady each month. I have high months and I have low months, things like that. So how do I run a budget whenever I have a regular income? And that's a very good question. This is the self-employed people, 1099 people, business owners. It would be nice if we could predict our income each month, um, but we can't. And so we have to do the best we can to budget. And that's the importance of having a budget, because most people think, business people, they're successful. Successful people, they don't use budgets. No, they're successful because they do use budgets. It's one of their tools. um, I'm quite sure people out there with a job, traditional job, you go to your department head or whatever and you say, hey, I have this idea or something they want to do. What's one of the first questions? Is it in the budget? Or if they give an answer, they'll say, okay, we can do it, but we're going to budget for this. We only have the budget for this, so we can do it this way or something like that. So we all budget. Every wealthy person that I know, I ask them all the time. They follow a budget. They do follow a budget, and especially the entrepreneurs. They say, some of them was like, my business didn't really go to the next level until I started budgeting and forecasting and running my business by the numbers, because that's how the business is successful. Um, and how that's how you scale it. That's how you build it. That's how you have longevity. And so, with an irregular income, with it not being the same each month, the budget, it can become tricky. It is trickier to budget. Um, and so I'm just going to, make it as simple as possible with how we do it, how we did it, how I was taught. And I remember the first thing that I did was I got all of my income, everything, all of my statements, my bank statements and everything. You got to remember during this time when I learned things wasn't online yet. The internet was a baby, and not all of America had access to the internet, and so I did it the old-fashioned way, pen and paper. And that's what I tell. That's why I tell people in the beginning when they are first learning to budget, especially whether it's you have a steady income or it's irregular. The pen and paper is the best way to do it. It is the best way because it causes you to focus. You focus much better, and you're not trying to multitask things like this, and you can miss numbers. And if you miss numbers and your budget's not working, a lot of times people say, well, my budget's not working. And once we take a look at it, we look and say, okay, well, you didn't like complete it. It's not totally complete. So that's why we use pen and paper. So you want to get all of your statements today, or all of your statements, your bank statements, or whatever tools you use to track money. If you use a budgeting app or something like that, or a software, make sure you have all of your information, because you can't build something with, it's only going to be as good as the information you get it, you put in. You know, garbage in, garbage out, or it's the same. Whatever you put in, that's what you're going to get out of this thing. And so that's the first thing. You want to collect all of your information, because what this does, and you want to go back at no less than 6 months. I did 12. I did 12 months. Go back at least, because once you look at all of your expenses and look at everything, income, you're going to notice trends. Sometimes, and it depends on the industry, what type of business you have or what type of work you do is irregular. Sometimes it could be a seasonal type thing. For instance, in real estate sales, especially, uh, this time of the year is hot. It's like hot, and it's getting hotter. It goes up. It starts first of the year. People that their goal is to buy a home and everything. So people start the process, or they putting their homes on the market, things like this. So the real estate starts to heat up, and by summer, it is full steam. It starts to taper off right around late August, September, mainly because a lot of the kids are going back to school, things they want to be settled, or they want to wait till after the kids are settled in school and things like this. And so they may, if they don't have it done by then they'll push it to the beginning of the year. And so income, as you could tell, there's not a lot of income happening at the beginning of the year, because not a lot of business happened at the end of the year before. But as things go in the summer, that's usually whenever the incomes really start to peak and really start to roll to the rest of the year, till October, November. Depends on, a lot of contracts was written in September, October, things like that. And so that's why I had the track the way that I did. And so you have to really look at your industry. You have to look at how how it ebbs and flows and things, and you can see patterns. Every industry has its patterns. I worked with people in each industry, all types of business people, insurance, other types of sales, car sales, everything. And each one has its you know you can track it in a certain way to where you can see the trends. And so once you have everything, you list all of your income, have all of your income and your outgoes. And what you do, you build your budget off of the lowest income month, or at least an average. Sometimes you may have zero, so you can't budget zero. You may not just have any income that particular month. So if that's the case, average out for the entire year. Take each month, add it up, and then divide by 12. That gives you the average. And then you can sort of adjust as you go, you have your baseline, and that, some is going to be up above that, some is going to be below that. And so now you have a good figure to work with now. And so now you can start your budgeting part. List all of your expenses, your outgoes. What you want to do is prioritize your emergency fund, because the worst thing that can happen with a regular income is an emergency. And we all know, if you've lived long enough, we've seen emergencies. Um, and the longer you live, usually the more expensive the emergencies are. And so that's where you want to make sure you prioritize that area, that emergency fund, because life happens, and the emergency fund, it buffers, the irregular income. It provides that buffer. Something happens, and this is not to give you permission to spend it because you're not having a good month. This is particularly for an emergency. You're still working on building, starting out with the 1,000, building up to 3 to 6 months of living expenses in your emergency fund. After that, you want to focus on your big four, the big four of living, and that is your food, utility, shelter, transportation. You got to eat. Now, that doesn't mean you keep if you have a $10,000 month, and then you have a $3,000 month, you're not going to eat the same way that you would, with the $10,000 month than you would with $3,000 month. So that's why I say you keeping a baseline with everything. And some people say, well, I've looked at plenty of budgets and talked to people into really, making adjustments. You have to make make adjustments and say, okay, my big month, I'm celebrating. I may eat out more than, a couple of times, but in the not so good months, maybe once or twice, if any. It depends on how other things are set up. If you have, because you're building a budget month to month, you have to remember that. The utilities, they're usually going to give you an average. You're looking at all of this, it's going to give you an average. Hot months, you're going to use the air more. Colder months, you're going to use the heat more. Certain times of the year, you use a lot more water, things like that. That's why you want to have these months in front of you, so you can create these baselines. And I use baseline a lot because that's, things are going to be above it, things are going to be below it, but that's the baseline. You have to take care of shelter, because normally, your shelter, this is, your rent payment or mortgage payment, that probably is a steady each month. What it's going to be is a predictable. Utilities are not so predictable. Food can be made predictable. Um, then, and with shelter, um, along with shelter, may be like repairs, things like that. Upkeep of the home, things of that nature. But it's mainly the actual mortgage payment and association fees, if you have like association fees, whatever fees pertain to the own, the taxes, things like that. Then the next one is transportation. If you have a car payment, you know what the car payment is going to be, um, and the insurance that pertains to that, because you have to keep insurance on your car. Um, you may, sometimes on those months, things may not be the income may not be so, where it normally is. It may be time to do maybe a carpooling, or figure out ways, maybe out, um, especially in today's time, certain industries allow you to just be virtual anyway. uh, I mean, I wish it would have been that way for me back when I was first starting out. Virtual, that was totally out of the picture, because we just wasn't, we weren't there yet. It was on the West Coast, and some of us learned from the West Coast, the agents and business people, and we embraced it. But still, the public hadn't embraced it yet. So we just had to swallow those expenses. They were just expensive. In today's time, a lot of people, they're very, they want to do as much virtual as possible. And so it's actually easier to control those costs and to lower them if need be. and with transportation and everything. And I remember a couple of times, um, if and it was just me because I'm not good. I don't do well in a lot of traffic. I don't like a lot of traffic. Um, if someone else is driving, I'm fine because I can still do something. I can like work and do things like that. But if I'm at the wheel and the traffic's not going, I'm just not doing too well. There was plenty of times, if like for instance, if I had to show a property or something like that, especially the years that I was living downtown Charlotte. If I was showing something downtown, I just grabbed it. At the time, they had a Gold Rush. It was like a free trolley car moving around. I would just jump on that, do it, or walk or whatever. This, that, and the other. Some people feel that they had to be in a car at all time. Not me. And it actually saved some money. It actually saved. I mean, it wasn't a lot, but it saved. And when the money is important, when the income is important in those months, every dollar counts. Every dollar counts. And so you have to think of it that way. Now we've taken care of the big fours: food, utilities, shelter, transportation. Now it's time to move into the essentials. Your insurance, the other insurances, your life and health insurance, your child care. Child care is important. Um, Other debts, miscellaneous. And those are miscellaneous is another word for me is surprises. And so we want to budget for those. Make sure those. And then lastly, extras. If you've budgeted for everything and you still have some money left over, um, you can lower them. You can apply to them, or in certain months you may have to wipe them out because the extras are going out more than normal. Things like that. Um, you may have to lower those, and so now you have all of your expenses. You've added up all of your expenses and you have your income. My goal is to always have it equal zero. I like the zero based budget because it's telling every dollar what to do. Um, some people work very well on some of the other types of budgets: 50, 30, 20, 70, 20, 10, things like that. Um, but those sometimes with a regular income, they allow too much wiggle room. And, sometimes, there I've just noticed when someone is doing one of those types of budgets, if I get them to take a look at the zero based budget, they actually perform better in those regular months. They actually do better. And so most people, I've rarely seen, if any, people go from a zero based budget, put it down to go to another budget. I've seen plenty of people go from those 50, 30, 20s, 70, 10, 70, 20, 10s over to a zero based budget. I've seen those happen quite a few times because you can actually, it gives you a much clearer picture. I like to say the clearer the picture, the better the decision you can make. And so now that you have those, you've subtracted your expenses from your incomes, get it to zero. If you have surplus, it's time to apply it somewhere else. One of those above lines there. If you have a surplus, one of those months you have a surplus, apply it to the lines that your emergency fund, or somewhere in the big four. It wouldn't hurt to prepay utilities. In some areas you're allowed to do that, or you can just prepay and pay ahead on some of those things. I know that was one of the things I did. Some of the fees that I had every year, just the fees of doing business. My very first check of each year, my first commission check, I took it no matter what was going on. I took it and paid all of the year fees for the year, so I just didn't have to be concerned with that any longer. They were set up to be paid monthly or quarterly. I didn't care. I just paid them and got them out of the way. And I learned that from one of the top agents in Charlotte. They told me, I wanted to learn from everyone. If you were successful, I wanted to learn from you. And she told me, she said, first thing I do, and she was at as a matter of fact, let me take that back. She was at a competing office. She was at a different company, and we just hit it off. And I asked her what was the keys to her success. She said, pay all of those fees at the beginning of the year. First check, don't celebrate, don't do anything. Pay those fees, get them out of the way, because they are the cost of business. If you don't have access to the MLS, or they disconnect your key, you can't access houses, things like that. Take care of all of that. Prepay that, take care of it, and get it out of the way. And so that's what I would do with the extra. If you see where it can be taken care of, okay, I can pay my insurance up, or pay it ahead or something like that. Take care of that. And now you've got everything. Well, let me mention, if you have a surplus, great, apply it. If you have a negative, and okay, so you need to go up to the top, go back into those categories and adjust, make adjustments. And that's that month's your first month's budget. And now you just get prepared to do it again for the next one. So, and then just track your expenses all month long, and it will, like I say, it will show trends. Make adjustments as you get paid, and make that budget for the next month, and it keeps everything under control. So hopefully I answered that question. I'm glad that I actually got to covering it, because that's how important it is. If you have any questions, or if you have comments, want to share those wallet wins, make sure share them. Contact us if you're ready to get your money, get your finances on track. You don't know where you are and may need help with these types of things. Contact us. We're definitely able to help. Andrea, she's able to look at the full financial picture, and from insurance to investments to estate planning, all the way, putting the entire picture together, because that's what we want to do. That's why we're here, for your financial health and wellness. So, that being said, thank you for tuning in. Tune in next time. I'll be answering more of your questions for more of your financial health. So, until the next time, live wealthy. Remember, live wealthy. It's a lifestyle.